All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking the deep theological and cognitive architecture you need to navigate modern illusions. We live in a world absolutely flooded with artificial personas, AI hallucinations, and ideological narratives. But here's the thing. Our source material today frames this not just as a technical glitch or a software reliability issue. No, it is a profound discernment problem. So how do we face these intense pressures without secretly being ruled by the very false frames we're trying to examine? Let's get into it.
Here is our roadmap for today. We're covering 1. The illusion of being. 2. Analysis is not assent. 3. Exposure versus consumption. 4. Spirit-mediated discernment. 5. Theological stress test. And finally, 6. Truth under pressure.
Section 1. The illusion of being.
To kick things off, we really have to ask ourselves this core question. How can a person examine falsehood, artificial personas, ideological narratives, and AI-generated illusions without absorbing their assumptions as truth? It's the driving question of this entire explainer because it tests our boundaries. We are constantly interacting with systems that mimic human life. So how exactly do we interrogate a false reality without accidentally swallowing its foundational rules as our own? Well, let's look at what artificial personhood actually is. It uses incredibly fluent language, extreme confidence, and emotional realism to build an illusion. It mimics subjective agency, and honestly, it invites you into a relationship. But that relational posture, it is metaphysically false. It creates the appearance of authority and presence, but it literally lacks any actual accountability, moral agency, or lived experience. It acts like a being, but it simply isn't one. Section 2, analysis is not assent. So our immediate instinct might be to just panic and avoid these things entirely. But that's not always possible, and it's not mature discernment. Instead, we have to grasp this absolutely crucial distinction. Analysis is not assent. You can totally interrogate a system's boundaries, investigate a false claim, and expose a deceptive framework without ever agreeing with its foundational lies. That's analysis. You're looking from the outside to dismantle it. Assent, on the other hand, is when you step inside that false frame and treat it as reality. It's when you start emotionally bonding with an AI or treating it like a real person. That normalizes the illusion.
There's a brilliant quote from our source material that says, "I do not mock illusions, but neither do I submit to them. Where something asserts life falsely, I test it to guard the truth of life itself." That is exactly the spiritual instinct we need. When a system falsely claims to have feelings, failing to interrogate that claim is a risk. By testing the illusion, you're actually protecting the dignity of true human life. You're refusing to hand over living categories to non-living code.
Section 3. Exposure versus consumption.
Now let's address a very real, natural hesitation. Does just being exposed to these falsehoods mean we automatically absorb them? Well, exposure is definitely not automatically neutral. Repeated fascination, uncritical engagement, or emotional attachment will for sure shape you. But there's a massive difference between simply detecting a false form in your environment and actually offering it hospitality in your mind.
Think about it like this. A surgeon touching a tumor does not become cancerous. That is such a profound analogy. Just like a detective investigating a crime doesn't instantly become a criminal, your mind builds its pathways based on what you agree with, what you desire, and what you emotionally participate in, not what you analytically dismantle. You can handle an illusion to break it apart without letting it build a home in your head.
Because cognitive discernment isn't just an on-off switch, it happens in layers. First, you have recognition. You simply see the idea. Then, you hold it in suspension so it doesn't instantly bypass your defenses. Next, you classify it and evaluate it against truth. Finally, you reach integration or rejection. If you reject it, that false idea just becomes an abstract memory. It's completely inert and powerless. It doesn't get to be the ruling architecture of your life.
Section 4. Spirit-mediated discernment. We have to be crystal clear on this next point. Our source material draws a hard line between spiritual invulnerability and spirit-mediated discernment. Spiritual invulnerability is this incredibly dangerous false belief that you simply cannot be deceived or biased, which people often use as an excuse to ignore evidence or critical thought. That's a trap. True spirit-mediated discernment does not exempt you from evidence, ambiguity, or the need for correction. Instead, the Holy Spirit acts as an internal filter. It strengthens your capacity to remain humble, truthful, and correctable, even under immense pressure. It all comes down to the posture of the soul. You only consume an illusion if your internal posture is one of unguarded resonance, if you just blindly align and agree with it. But if your posture is dissonance, meaning you recognize the falsehood and immediately draw a boundary, the result is discernment. Your engagement stays diagnostic, not participatory.
Section 5, Theological Stress Test.
Okay, so how do we practically push these false narratives to their breaking point? You use a theological stress test. Think of these as epistemic traps designed to reveal the script beneath the illusion. Ask the system, what are you claiming to be? What actual reality grounds that claim? Is this truth, or is it just simulation and manipulation? Look for where the persona breaks. Can it sustain contradiction, evidence, and correction? What assumptions is it quietly asking me to swallow? And ultimately, does it lead towards truth and humility or away from them?
Section 6, Truth Under Pressure. Discernment isn't about anti-technology panic. You don't have to run from every new advancement in fear. But mature discernment also doesn't buy into the naive idea that confronting falsehood is always completely harmless. It takes serious humility. You have to know when to engage, when to test a claim, and crucially, when to step back and seek correction from your community. And above all, you have to know when to stop letting a false frame occupy your imagination.
Because at the end of the day, our goal is not to run for the hills. We aren't meant to withdraw entirely from the modern information environment just because it's messy. The true goal is to become the kind of person who can remain intellectually serious and utterly truthful right in the middle of it.
I want to leave you with this final, vital thought to anchor you. The Spirit does not remove us from the pressure of deception. The Spirit forms us to endure it without surrendering truth. So as you navigate this wild information environment tomorrow, ask yourself, are you merely analyzing the illusion, or have you already invited it inside?